A family gathers around the dinner table. Their radio sits on the kitchen counter. The kids and their father sit in their seats while their mother serves each plate and sets each one down, one by one. She serves her own plate last, but before sitting down, she remembers to turn on the radio and flips through different stations. It's time for everyone's favorite show. They listen every evening during dinner. And as they're eating and laughing, the show suddenly stops, and a disturbing message plays over and over again. These radio frequency hijackings or broadcast signal intrusions don't happen often, but when they do, it ends up a mystery. And in most cases, the people that cause these are never caught. My name is Edwin, and here's a horror story. Before streaming services like Netflix or Hulu, and before network television, radio was the form of entertainment for most American households. While scientists and researchers were experimenting with radio in the late 1800s and early 1900s worldwide, in the United States, the first commercial radio stations began broadcasting in the 1920s. This kicked off the golden age for radio, which lasted well into the 1950s. Families would gather to listen to their favorite shows together. The most popular drew in millions of listeners. By the year 1931, the majority of U.S. households had at least one radio. In 1933, 60 million people tuned in to Roosevelt's first fireside chat. And in 1938, 32 million tuned in for the War of the Worlds radio drama show. It was extremely popular. When TV became widely available in the 1950s, it took over home entertainment. And check out how fast this grew. Before the year 1947, less than 5,000 Americans had televisions in their home. But only 5 years later, 12 million Americans had televisions. And by 1960, almost every household had one. Frequency hijackings happen to both radio and television signals. When it comes to radio, hijacking a signal is not as complicated as it may seem in 90 seconds of confusion and terror. Instead of music, listeners heard a man speaking in German. They could only recognize the words like Reich, Japan, and Paris. None of these sentences were coherent. 1 minute and a half later, it was over. The FBI got involved in the investigation, and the intruder was never found. They concluded it had been an accidental intrusion, possibly a phone call. But still, hearing those words during World War II was jarring for WOKO-AM patrons. 63 years later, another New York radio station was hijacked for 90 seconds. It was a Wednesday morning, and WBAB, a Babylon, New York classic rock station, and the radio jockey had just announced the Pink Floyd song was up next. When he stopped talking, muffled voices could be heard but not understood. These voices were not followed by the promised Pink Floyd song. Instead, it was 90 seconds of a song by a 1960s-era white supremacist country singer, Johnny Rebel. When the station regained control of their radio station, the morning host, Roger Luce, was shocked. Quote, "Whatever that was, it was very racist. 22 years at this station, I've never seen anything like this. Whoever had done this was never found." In 2015, an alternative rock station, WXXR 97.3, was hijacked for 30 minutes. It was a special Sunday night. A small local station was celebrating their 1-year anniversary of being on air. It was a festive and happy mood, that is, until 7:30 p.m. A couple of seconds of silence were followed by a strange message.
Greetings, citizens of the world. We are anonymous. We are reaching out to you in such a direct manner because we have exhausted every other avenue. We would like to take a few minutes of your time to inform you about the United States government's plan to murder over 120 million citizens. We do not have enough time to reveal all of the evidence or history on this plot. You must find the truth out for yourself. Open your eyes. People are already disappearing in the USA. The homeless are being rounded up in the night by military persons and disposed of. Mass graves are already in place, as well as millions of coffins that President Obama has built himself for the citizens of the U.S. Each crematorium-ready coffin can fit 5 bodies easily. The citizens of America have already been divided into groups based on data gathered on them.
This message was on repeat for 30 minutes. Dwayne Doherty, the station engineer, told the Tribune-Star newspaper that he headed towards the 97.3's transmitter as soon as he heard the odd message playing, but he was unable to locate where it was coming from. The station claimed they contacted the FBI and the FCC, but nothing came of the investigation. Some began to think it was a stunt for attention. After all, why would Anonymous hack a random Indiana alternative rock radio station? Either way, most listeners were extremely disturbed by the hijacking. And it's worth saying, radio hijackings are more common, but television broadcast intrusions will always get more news coverage. One of the strangest and most well-known signal hijackings took place on November 22nd, 1987. It was 9 p.m. in Chicago. The WGN 9 o'clock news was on, as usual. It was a sports segment. Dan Roach, the Channel 9 sportscaster, was recapping the Chicago Bears game while a highlights reel played in the background. As Dan Roach said, then the defense, which hadn't put up a sack of defense in 12 quarters, finally did, and he was cut off. The screen went black. 10 seconds went by. Then, Channel 9 viewers were met with a man in an oversized mask that appeared to be homemade. The mask had sunglasses, slick back blonde hair, a giant disturbing smile, and a protruding chin. He wore a brown suit, a white shirt, and a black tie. Behind the masked man was a metal background. To some, this might have looked like some random horror character, but it was not. It was Max Headroom. Max Headroom was a fictional artificial intelligence character portrayed by a Canadian-American actor, Matt Frewer. With the assistance of prosthetic makeup, a molded plastic suit, and a blue screen, Matt depicted Max Headroom. The character was advertised as computer-generated, and many actually believed it was. In the show, Max was a journalist who worked in a news station owned by a large corporation. He uncovers a dark secret during an investigation and is killed because of it. After his murder, Max's hacker friend preserves his brain and uploads it to a network. Max then becomes a digital news anchor who exists only inside of broadcast signals and computer systems. He drops into television broadcasts. According to his creators, Max's personality was meant to be a satirical example.
On the wall, there was a man in my hallway. Or what it looked to be a man, we don't know. Clear as day, like there is a person in the hallway. I took a picture of it. I still have it. I still have it on my phone. Immediately, I had my phone next to me on my bed, and I quickly took the picture so I could show my husband. There was somebody in that hallway. My husband was reaching out to everyone to ask for help of like, what do you think we should do? Because it was affecting me, it was affecting our son. It was so weird. The presence in that apartment, it was like the minute that you walked in, you felt like something was just sitting like on you. It was so tense. The minute you walked out of it, it was a breath of fresh air. It was so weird that it started happening after the baby was born. One night, I looked out my window in my bedroom. There was a woman. She was in a gown. She had a walking stick. She did not look like from our time period in any way, shape, or form. I told my husband about her. I was like, somebody's outside the window. I was on the phone with him. And he was like, well, take a picture. I looked down he would scream the minute that he was alone.